Darkness fell on Camp Scott, a place that was supposed to be a sanctuary for young girls, a place where they could learn, grow, and create memories that would last a lifetime. But on this fateful night, the camp was shrouded in an ominous gloom. A blanket of unease settled over the Oklahoma wilderness, as if the very air was thick with foreboding. The trees, usually whispering secrets of nature, stood silent, their branches heavy with the weight of the impending tragedy. A storm raged, its fury echoing the terror that unfolded within the canvas walls of tent number 8. The wind howled through the camp and the rain pounded relentlessly, as if nature itself was mourning the events that were about to transpire. 3 young Girl Scouts, their laughter silenced, their dreams shattered, lay victims of a horror unimaginable. The innocence of Lori Lee Farmer, Doris Denise Milner, and Michelle Goose was brutally taken away, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, a chilling tale etched in the annals of American crime, remain unsolved, a haunting reminder that some wounds time cannot heal. This is their story, a story that continues to haunt the memories of those who were there and those who have heard of the tragedy. This tranquil summer camp, nestled in the heartland of America, transformed into a scene of unimaginable cruelty. What was once a place of joy and laughter became a site of sorrow and despair, forever marked by the events of that night. 3 innocent lives, Lori Lee Farmer 8, Doris Denise Milner 10, and Michelle Goose 9 were brutally extinguished, leaving behind a community paralyzed by fear and a nation grappling for answers. Their smiles, once bright and full of life, now only exist in photographs and memories. The community, once tight-knit and full of hope, was left in a state of shock and grief. Candlelight vigils were held, tears were shed, and prayers were whispered into the night, but nothing could bring back the lost innocence of those 3 young girls. The question echoes through the years: who could commit such a heinous act? Detectives and investigators pored over evidence, searching for clues, but the answers remained elusive. The mystery of what happened that night at Camp Scott continues to baffle and haunt, a dark chapter in the history of American crime. As the years have passed, the memories of Camp Scott have faded for some, but for others, the pain remains as fresh as ever. The camp, once a place of joy, now stands as a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Memorials have been erected, and the names of Lori, Denise, and Michelle are etched in stone, a permanent tribute to their short lives. The community continues to honor their memory, hoping that one day, the truth will come to light and justice will be served. Until that day comes, the story of the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders remains a poignant reminder of the vulnerability of innocence and the enduring quest for justice. The serene forest that once echoed with the laughter of children now stands silent, a testament to the lives lost and the mystery that endures. Camp Scott, nestled amidst the rolling hills of Mays County, Oklahoma, was a sanctuary. This camp, with its lush greenery and tranquil surroundings, offered a perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The natural beauty of the area was breathtaking, with dense forests, clear streams, and an abundance of wildlife. It was a place where one could truly connect with nature and find peace. Generations of Girl Scouts forged friendships, embraced adventure, and learned amidst its serene beauty. The camp was a haven for young girls, a place where they could be themselves and grow in confidence. They hiked through the woods, sang songs around the campfire, and shared stories under the stars. The bonds formed here were strong and lasting, built on shared experiences and mutual support. Established in the 1920s, the camp was a tapestry of laughter, camaraderie, and shared experiences. Over the decades, it became a cherished tradition for many families, with mothers and daughters and even grandmothers sharing their own stories of Camp Scott. The camp's history was rich and vibrant, filled with memories of joy and adventure. Summer days were filled with the aroma of campfires, the melody of sing-alongs, and the thrill of exploring nature's embrace. The girls learned to appreciate the simple pleasures of life, from roasting marshmallows over an open fire to discovering the wonders of the natural world. Each day brought new adventures and opportunities for growth. The camp, named after a prominent Tulsa businessman, embodied the spirit of adventure and self-reliance. It was a place where girls were encouraged to push their boundaries and discover their strengths. The rustic buildings and well-worn trails were a testament to the countless girls who had passed through, each leaving their mark on the camp's legacy. Girls learned essential life skills, from pitching tents to building fires, fostering a sense of independence and camaraderie. These skills were not just practical, They were lessons in resilience and teamwork. The girls learned to rely on themselves and each other, building confidence and forming bonds that would last a lifetime. The air buzzed with youthful energy, a testament to the camp's ability to create lasting memories. The laughter and joy of the girls were infectious, filling the camp with a sense of happiness and contentment. Camp Scott was more than just a place. It was an experience, a cherished part of growing up for countless girls. It was a place where dreams were nurtured and lifelong friendships were born. Days before tragedy struck, an unsettling feeling descended upon Camp Scott. A series of unsettling incidents, dismissed as pranks at the time, cast a pall over the carefree atmosphere. Supplies went missing, belongings were disturbed, and a chilling discovery sent shivers down the spines of campers and counselors alike. A counselor recounting the events later described finding her belongings ransacked, her belongings strewn across the floor. A sense of unease, a feeling of being watched, pervaded the camp. These incidents, seemingly insignificant, would later become chilling harbingers of the darkness to come. June 12, 1977 dawned like any other day at Camp Scott. The girls, filled with the exuberance of youth, eagerly participated in camp activities. As evening approached, a storm gathered on the horizon, its ominous rumble a precursor to the horror that would soon unfold. The girls, seeking refuge from the downpour, retreated to their tents. In the shadowy confines of tent number 8, Lori, Denise, and Michelle drifted off to sleep, unaware that their young lives were about to be tragically cut short. That night, evil visited Camp Scott, leaving an indelible mark on its history and forever shattering the innocence of a summer night. The storm-ravaged campsite painted a grim picture the following morning. The once lively and cheerful site, filled with laughter and the sounds of nature, had transformed into a scene of devastation. The tents were torn, the ground was muddy, and the air was thick with an eerie silence that seemed to echo the tragedy that had unfolded. The discovery of the girls' bodies, a scene too gruesome to describe, sent shockwaves through the camp and beyond. The campers, who had come for a weekend of adventure and bonding, were now faced with an unimaginable horror. The police quickly cordoned off the area, marking it with yellow tape that fluttered in the breeze, a stark contrast to the vibrant green of the forest. The investigation that followed was meticulous, desperate to bring the perpetrator of this heinous crime to justice. Detectives combed through the site, examining every inch for clues. They interviewed the campers, hoping to piece together the events of the night. The sense of urgency was palpable, as each passing moment felt like a step further from catching the killer. The cause of death, a chilling testament to the brutality inflicted upon the young victims, sent shivers down the spines of seasoned investigators. The autopsy revealed that the girls had suffered severe head trauma, likely caused by a heavy object. The brutality of the attack was evident, and it was clear that the perpetrator had no regard for human life. The murder weapon, a heavy object believed to be a flashlight, was found near the tent, adding another piece to the macabre puzzle. The flashlight, covered in blood, was a grim reminder of the violence that had occurred. It was carefully bagged and tagged by the forensic team, who hoped it would provide crucial evidence in identifying the killer. The scene yielded other clues: articles of clothing, footprints, and a chilling piece of evidence, a fingerprint on a roll of duct tape. The duct tape, found near the bodies, suggested that the girls had been restrained before their tragic end. The footprint, partially obscured by the mud, was photographed and cast, in the hope that it would lead to a suspect. The hunt for the killer had begun. Police search teams, accompanied by dogs, scoured the forest for any additional evidence. The detectives worked tirelessly, driven by the need to bring justice to the young victims and their grieving families. The community, once united by the joy of the camp, now came together in sorrow and determination, hoping that the perpetrator would soon be caught and held accountable for this unspeakable crime. The air hung heavy with the scent of jasmine, a stark contrast to the chilling scene unfolding within the opulent Houston mansion. Mark Johnson, a man who seemingly had it all, wealth, charm, and a beautiful fiancée, lay dead on the marble floor, his lifeblood staining the pristine white rug. It was a gruesome end to a love story that had captivated Houston's social circles, a tale that was about to take a dark, sinister turn. From the outside, Mark and Lisa's relationship seemed like a fairy tale. Their engagement announcement had been the talk of the town, their pictures splashed across society magazines. They were the epitome of success and happiness. But behind the facade of a perfect couple lurked a secret, a darkness that would soon shatter the illusion and expose the truth behind Lisa Carter's captivating smile. The investigation would uncover a web of lies, deceit, and a cold-blooded plan motivated by greed. It would serve as a chilling reminder that things are not always as they seem, and sometimes, the most dangerous predators hide in plain sight, their true intentions masked by charm and beauty. Mark Johnson was living the American dream. Born and raised in the heart of Houston, he was a self-made millionaire with a disarming smile and an easygoing charm that drew people in. He had built his empire from the ground up, his software company a testament to his hard work and ambition. Mark was known for his generosity, always willing to lend a helping hand to those less fortunate. He had a quiet confidence, never one to boast about his accomplishments. His life was an open book, his past free of scandals or secrets. He was a man of simple pleasures, a round of golf on a sunny afternoon, a quiet evening with a good book, and the company of good friends. When Lisa Carter entered his life, she seemed to complete the picture, adding a spark of excitement to his well-ordered world. He was smitten, blinded by love and the promise of a future filled with happiness. He had no idea that the woman he was about to pledge his life to was not who she seemed. Lisa Carter was a vision of elegance and grace, with her long, flowing hair, piercing blue eyes, and a figure that could launch 1,000 ships. She exuded an aura of sophistication and mystery. She had arrived in Houston 2 years prior, a whirlwind of charm and ambition. She captivated Mark from the moment they met at a charity gala. She was everything he wasn't, impulsive, spontaneous, and always the life of the party. She was a breath of fresh air in his structured world, and he fell for her hard and fast. Lisa was a master manipulator, skilled at weaving tales of a tragic past and a longing for stability. She played the role of the damsel in distress to perfection, drawing Mark deeper into her web of deceit. She showered him with affection, whispering sweet nothings and showering him with expensive gifts, all the while plotting her own twisted game. In the throes of infatuation, Mark chose to ignore the subtle red flags that hinted at Lisa's true nature. Friends whispered concerns about her lavish spending habits and her secretive nature. They found it odd that she seemed to have no past, her life before Houston shrouded in mystery. Mark dismissed their concerns as jealousy, his judgment clouded by love. He brushed aside the inconsistencies in her stories, her vague explanations about her past. He ignored the strange phone calls she received at odd hours, the hushed conversations she quickly ended whenever he entered the room. He was blinded by love, unable to see the truth staring him in the face. Even the discovery of her online searches for fastest acting poisons and how to disappear completely was rationalized away. He convinced himself that she was simply researching plot points for a novel she was writing. He clung to the belief that deep down, Lisa loved him, that their future together was as bright as she promised it to be. Section 5. A gruesome discovery. The discovery of Mark's body sent shockwaves through the city. His housekeeper, a kindly woman who had been with him for years, stumbled upon the grisly scene upon arriving for work. The mansion, usually so full of life, was eerily silent, the only sound the insistent chirping of birds outside. The police were immediately called, the idyllic neighborhood soon swarming with patrol cars and news vans. The story became a media sensation, the perfect life of Houston's golden boy cut tragically short. Suspicion immediately fell on Lisa, her whereabouts unknown. When questioned by police, Lisa's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. Her alibi was full of holes, her grief unconvincing. The inconsistencies in her story, once easily dismissed by a love-struck Mark, now glared under the harsh scrutiny of the investigators. The perfect fiancé was about to transform into the prime suspect.
The moment I reviewed the evidence, I knew something was off. Lisa's story had too many gaps.
Detective Michael Hayes had a gut feeling that there was more to the story. His meticulous investigation began to reveal the inconsistencies in Lisa's account. The Alyssa Burkett case was eerily similar. It was a chilling reminder that sometimes the ones closest to us can harbor the darkest secrets. The patterns were undeniable, and it became clear that Lisa had a history of manipulation and deceit.
When the verdict was read, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Justice was served, but it would never bring my brother back.
Mark's sister stood in the courtroom, her heart heavy yet resolved. The jury's decision brought some closure, but the pain of loss lingered. Even after the trial, the memory of Mark's tragic fate serves as a haunting reminder. It's a story that warns us to be vigilant, to trust but verify, and to always look beneath the surface. The aftermath of the shocking murder left the community in a state of disbelief. Friends and family of the victim struggled to come to terms with the loss, while the media frenzy continued to unfold. The fiancé's dark secret had been unveiled, but the scars it left behind would take much longer to heal. As the community rallied together, they vowed to remember the victim and ensure that justice was served. In the wake of the tragedy, the community began to heal. Support groups were formed and vigils were held in memory of the victim. The fiancé's dark secret had been a shock to everyone, but it also brought the community closer together. People shared their stories, offered support, and worked towards rebuilding a sense of normalcy. The healing process was slow, but the community's resilience shone through. As time passed, the community started to move forward. The victim's family established a foundation in their memory, aimed at helping others who had experienced similar tragedies. The fiancé's dark secret had been a painful revelation, but it also served as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and support. The community continued to honor the victim's memory, ensuring that their legacy lived on. The shocking murder and the fiancé's dark secret left a lasting impact on everyone involved. It served as a stark reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the importance of paying attention to red flags. The community learned valuable lessons about trust, support, and the need for vigilance. As they moved forward, they carried these lessons with them, determined to create a safer and more supportive environment for everyone. With time, the community found a new beginning. The victim's memory was honored through various initiatives, and the fiancé's dark secret became a cautionary tale. The community emerged stronger, more united, and more determined to support one another. As they looked to the future, they carried the lessons learned from the tragedy, ensuring that the victim's legacy would never be forgotten.
What if the person closest to you just vanished and nobody had any answers? Lily Harper was always the life of Cedarwood. Friendly, outgoing, and deeply connected to everyone she knew. But on a cold autumn evening, she vanished. No note, no warning. Her apartment was untouched, her car left behind, and the phone records were eerily silent. Her parents hadn't heard from her in days. When the local authorities arrived, they found nothing unusual, except that Lily was gone. Her neighbors reported hearing nothing out of the ordinary that night, but something didn't feel right. Lily was the type of person who always kept in touch. This wasn't like her. Was it voluntary? Did she leave? Or was there something darker behind her disappearance? A shattered phone. A final message. Who was she talking to? The only lead was her phone, found in a pile of dirt just a mile away from her apartment. It was shattered, but the screen still worked enough to read the last text she sent. It simply said, "I'll be fine. It's just too much. I need space." Who was she talking to? And why was she suddenly so desperate for space? No one had been aware that she was going through anything more than the usual pressures of work and life. Lily's friends and family described her as happy and full of life. But now they were left grappling with a message that didn't make sense. Detective Hayes immediately traced the phone's last call, but the number had been wiped from the logs. This was starting to feel like someone wanted it to look like she'd just run away. Except Lily wasn't the type to just leave. The missing letter. A letter, sealed and forgotten. What was Lily hiding? Back at her apartment, police found something. Curious. An unopened letter. It was wedged between the pages of a book she'd been reading, yet it had never been opened. The envelope was addressed to Lily, but the handwriting was unfamiliar to anyone in her circle. The authorities immediately began investigating the letter. Who had sent it, and why hadn't Lily opened it? Was it a clue? Or was someone trying to give her a message she had chosen to ignore? Emma, her best friend, was certain it had nothing to do with Lily's disappearance. But then why had Lily hidden it? A friend's secret. Not all secrets stay buried. Could a best friend be hiding something? As the investigation into Lily's life deepened, Emma's behavior became more erratic. She had always been a close friend, but something about her demeanor was off. She seemed nervous when asked about their last conversation. Soon, the police found a troubling journal entry in Emma's diary from the night before Lily disappeared. The words revealed an argument that took place between the two women, an argument over something mysterious. Lily had mentioned feeling unsafe and told Emma she had a plan to leave town. But why hadn't Emma mentioned this before? Was she keeping something back? A secret that could lead to the truth of what happened to her friend? The stranger's call. What if the call you received was from someone who knew your darkest secrets? 2 days before her disappearance, Lily received an unsettling phone call. The caller didn't say a word. He just breathed heavily into the phone. Lily had never mentioned anything about this call to anyone. The police traced the number to an abandoned house just outside Cedarwood, but when they arrived, there was nothing. No signs of anyone having lived there for years. However, the phone records showed Lily had called this number several times in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Was this person involved in her disappearance? Or was it just someone trying to confuse the authorities? The unseen watcher. You're being watched, but you don't know by who. What would you do next? Neighbors began to recall a strange figure standing near Lily's apartment on the night she disappeared. A tall man, always wearing a long dark coat and never seen before in the neighborhood. But none of the neighbors had seen him leave. No, one knew who he was, but he seemed to be watching Lily's apartment, waiting. Was he a stalker? A stranger? Or was he someone from Lily's past who had been lying low? This only deepened the mystery. Had Lily been running from someone all along? The Whispering Woods Hook. There's something haunting about those woods. Some say they speak to you. After a few days of no progress, a search team ventured into the woods behind Lily's apartment. The area was dense with trees, and it was believed that local legends surrounded the place. Some claimed the woods were cursed, that anyone who ventured too far into them would hear whispers on the wind, voices calling out for help. When the team was deep within the woods, they began hearing faint noises that sounded like muffled voices. Was it the wind? Or was something, trying to lead them to Lily? They found no trace of her, but the sounds they heard stayed with them. Something was definitely off about the woods. The lost memory. One forgotten detail could change everything. What if the past holds the key? Jason, Lily's old high school friend, came forward with an odd memory. He recalled her mentioning once that she was planning to leave Cedarwood after high school, but Lily had never talked about leaving town in recent years. Why would she have hidden this from everyone? Jason's words were disturbing. He remembered an unusual fight they had the week before she disappeared. He'd asked her if she was happy staying in Cedarwood, and she'd hesitated, her eyes full of an emotion he couldn't place. It was almost as if she knew something bad was coming. Could this conversation have been a clue to her disappearance? Was she planning to leave the town for a reason they couldn't yet understand? The cryptic clue, a forgotten necklace, a hidden message. Who left it behind, and why? When a construction crew was working on an old lot near Cedarwood High, they uncovered a piece of jewelry, a necklace Lily always wore. It had been buried under some debris, far from where anyone would expect it. The workers turned it in, and the police immediately recognized it as belonging to Lily. How did it end up in such a remote place? Was someone trying to plant evidence to suggest she'd been there recently? Or was it a desperate attempt to draw the police's attention elsewhere? And if someone knew about Lily's necklace, what else were they hiding? The hidden room. What do you do when you uncover a hidden room filled with secrets? A second search of Emma's home revealed something chilling. A hidden room in the attic, concealed behind a false wall. Inside the room were piles of old photographs, some of Lily, and some that were taken from places Lily had never been. Emma's face turned pale when confronted with these photos, but she denied having anything to do with them. She claimed she didn't know where they had come from. However, when the police looked closer, they found a journal in the room, Emma's journal, and one entry stood out. It was about a plan she and Lily had to leave town, a plan that was never completed. What was Emma hiding? Was she more involved in Lily's disappearance than anyone could have imagined? The neighbor's story. What if the key witness you need is someone no one trusts? Mr. Larson, the elderly man who lived next door to Lily, was quiet and unassuming. But when he was finally questioned by the police, he made a startling claim. On the night Lily disappeared, he had seen her leave her apartment, but she wasn't alone. She had been walking with a man, someone Mr. Larson had never seen before. The man was tall, with a dark coat and a low hat that obscured his face. Larson's testimony was shaky, but it added a disturbing new layer to the mystery. If Lily had left willingly with someone, then why didn't anyone know who he was? Was he connected to the strange phone calls or the shadowy figure seen near her apartment? Was this man Lily's captor or someone else entirely? The blackout hook. In the dead of night, everything changes. What secrets does the darkness reveal? Cedarwood experienced a strange power outage on the very night Lily disappeared. The blackout lasted for several hours, and while most residents went about their business, a few reported hearing strange noises during the darkness. Some said they heard footsteps outside their homes, while others described whispers, voices they couldn't quite place. When the lights came back on, Lily was gone. Could the blackout have been planned? Was it meant to cover up something? As the police reviewed footage from security cameras around town, they noticed a strange pattern. Several people were seen wandering aimlessly in the dark, but one figure stood out. A tall man in a dark coat, moving quickly between houses. This blackout wasn't a coincidence. But who had orchestrated it? And why? The police officer's guilt. What if the detective hunting for answers is hiding his own? Detective Stephen Hayes had been on the case from the start, but the deeper he dug, the more his own past started to resurface. Hayes had grown up in Cedarwood, and he remembered Lily, though she didn't remember him. But there was something about the case that seemed personal, something he wasn't prepared to face. As the investigation moved forward, it became clear that Hayes was hiding something. He'd been close to Lily's estranged father, Frank Harper, years ago, and there were whispers around town that the two men had a falling out, something so severe that Hayes had left town for a while before returning to become a detective. Could Hayes's connection to Lily's father be clouding his judgment? Or, worse, was he involved in her disappearance in some way? His guilt weighed heavily on him, and he began questioning his own role in the investigation. The family secret. Could the person you've been searching for be the one closest to you? Lily's estranged father, Frank Harper, reappeared in Cedarwood shortly after his daughter went missing. He hadn't been around for years. He left the family when Lily was young. His sudden return raised eyebrows, especially given his history with Detective Hayes. Frank claimed he was here to help, but his arrival seemed to add more questions than answers. He didn't seem all that concerned about his daughter's disappearance. In fact, some of his responses seemed too rehearsed, too distant. Was Frank hiding something? Did he know more about Lily's life than he was letting on? And why hadn't he been involved in her life for so many years? Was there a hidden reason behind his absence, or was he involved in her disappearance in some way? The buried truth. Sometimes, the darkest secrets lie beneath your feet. A large-scale excavation project began near the outskirts of town. When the workers began digging, they uncovered something unexpected, an old well, long forgotten, tucked away beneath layers of dirt and debris. Inside the well, they found a stack of old, brittle letters, some of which contained names that seemed eerily familiar. As it turned out, the letters were part of Cedarwood's early history, and they contained strange, cryptic messages. Some of the names mentioned in the letters were people who had long been buried in the town's history, people Lily had known, or at least people connected to her past. The more the authorities investigated, the clearer it became. Cedarwood had always been a town with secrets, and Lily's disappearance seemed to be linked to a far older mystery than anyone had ever imagined. The whispering witness. When a witness vanishes, the truth becomes even harder to find. A young woman named Ava came forward with a strange story. She claimed she saw Lily on the night she disappeared, but what was even stranger was that Ava said Lily was talking to someone in the shadows, someone she couldn't see clearly. She described the man as tall, but said she couldn't remember his face, just the way he moved. Ava's testimony could have been crucial, but before the police could question her further, Ava vanished. No one saw her again. Her apartment was found empty, and there were no traces of her whereabouts. Had she been involved in Lily's disappearance, or had someone else made her disappear too? This mysterious disappearance only added to the growing list of questions surrounding Lily's case. The hidden agenda. In a town full of secrets, whose side are you really on? As Detective Hayes dug deeper into the lives of those closest to Lily, it became clear that more than one person had something to hide. Emma, her best friend, had been acting suspiciously since the start of the investigation. Her evasive answers raised doubts, and the photos found in her hidden attic room were damning. But Emma wasn't the only one with secrets. Lily's co-workers at the local diner seemed to know more than they were saying. Frank Harper's return to town raised more suspicion than reassurance. And then there was Jason, Lily's high school friend, who seemed to be hiding something from the past that might connect him to the mystery. Everyone in Cedarwood was hiding something. But what was their agenda? And how far would they go to protect? Hit the final countdown hook. The clock is ticking and the pressure is mounting. Can the truth be uncovered before it's too late? The search for Lily had reached a breaking point. The pressure from town officials was mounting, and Detective Hayes found himself facing an ultimatum. Either solve the case or face termination. The deeper Hayes dug, the more he uncovered about his own connections to the town's darker history. The investigation now seemed to be spiraling out of control, with new revelations pointing to a conspiracy involving multiple people, both within the town and beyond its borders. Could the truth come to light in time? Or would those responsible for Lily's disappearance succeed in keeping their secrets buried forever? The gathering storm. The closer you get to the truth, the more dangerous it becomes. Will anyone survive the storm? As Detective Hayes put the final pieces together, he realized that the mystery of Lily's disappearance was connected to something far more sinister, something that had been hidden within Cedarwood for generations. The truth was far darker than anyone could have imagined. Now, the stakes were higher than ever. Hayes and those around him were in grave danger, and the lines between friend and foe were beginning to blur. As the storm gathered, it became clear that uncovering the truth might not be enough to save anyone involved. The face in the window. When you think you've seen the last of someone, what if they come back to haunt you? As the investigation reached its boiling point, a chilling sight was reported by a local resident. Late at night, from across the street, they saw a face in the window of Lily's apartment. Only it wasn't Lily's face. It was the face of someone else. A man. Could Lily still be alive? Had she been hiding in plain sight all this time? Or was this some twisted game being played by someone who wanted to taunt the authorities? The dark past. What if everything you thought you knew about the town you grew up in was a lie? As the investigation pressed on, Detective Hayes uncovered a shocking truth about Cedarwood's history, something the town's leaders had tried to bury for years. Decades ago, there had been a series of strange disappearances in the town, many of which were never solved. The names from the letters found in the old well seemed eerily familiar. They matched those of people who had vanished mysteriously years before, all in similar circumstances to Lily's case. The deeper Hayes went, the more he realized that Lily's disappearance might not be an isolated event. Was Cedarwood cursed? Or had someone orchestrated these disappearances for decades? There were too many links between the past and the present to ignore, and the truth about the town's hidden history seemed to be the key to solving the mystery. But could Hayes trust his own memories? And was he somehow connected to these past events? The unlikely ally. When your enemies become your allies, can you still trust them? Emma, who had been a suspect for much of the investigation, suddenly became an unlikely ally. After being confronted with new evidence about her connection to Lily, she finally broke down and confessed something chilling. She had been receiving strange, anonymous letters in the weeks leading up to Lily's disappearance. Letters warning her to stay away from Lily, or else. The letters were signed with a single word: Echo. Emma had dismissed them at first as a prank, but when she started noticing strange things happening, Lily becoming increasingly withdrawn, receiving cryptic phone calls, it became clear that someone was targeting both of them. Emma's new revelations shifted the investigation, providing a new lead. Who was Echo, and why were they so focused on Lily and her closest friends? The return of the shadows. What if the shadows never left? What if they were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? A chilling piece of surveillance footage surfaced. It was from the night of the blackout, and it showed a shadowy figure lurking near Lily's apartment complex. The figure appeared to be watching the building, waiting for something. As the video played, viewers noticed something unsettling. This figure wasn't just a random bystander. It was wearing the same dark coat seen in multiple reports. This wasn't just a random passerby, it was someone with intent. The question now was, what had they been waiting for? When a witness claimed to have seen this figure near the outskirts of the woods days before Lily disappeared, the connection became undeniable. The shadows were tied to the dark history of Cedarwood. But why were they targeting Lily? And what role did they play in the string of past disappearances? The price of silence. What happens when silence becomes a weapon? A former resident of Cedarwood, Charles Montgomery, came forward with an explosive piece of information. He had lived in the town many years ago before moving away, but he never spoke up about the horrors he had witnessed. He revealed that the town had always had a code of silence. Whenever someone tried to expose the truth about the disappearances, they were silenced. This silence had been enforced by an influential group in the town, the same group that controlled the narrative and kept the townspeople quiet. When Charles began speaking out about what he knew, his family was driven out of town, and they had been threatened with harm if they ever returned. But now, with the rise of Lily's case, he felt he had no choice but to speak. Charles's story was chilling. There were certain families in Cedarwood whose wealth and power went back generations, and they had been the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes. They had orchestrated the disappearances, not for money, but to cover up dark, twisted rituals tied to the town's founding. As Hayes processed this, he realized that these families might still hold the keys to unlocking the mystery of Lily's disappearance. But could Charles be trusted? And what would the powerful people behind these families do to stop him from talking? The final warning. When a warning becomes a threat, how far are you willing to go for the truth? The stakes were higher than ever, and it became clear that someone was watching every move Hayes made. The police received an anonymous tip, an envelope with a single warning. Stop asking questions. Stop digging, or you will never see Lily again. The threat was chilling, but Hayes couldn't back down now. Every piece of evidence pointed to a hidden conspiracy, and he was too close to the truth to quit. As the investigation drew closer to the town's wealthy elite, Hayes realized that the people behind the disappearances were not just ordinary criminals. They were part of the town's social fabric. Cedarwood's history was built on dark foundations, and the truth was buried deep within the town's most powerful families. Hayes knew that uncovering the truth meant putting himself and his loved ones in danger. But he had no choice. He couldn't let the truth remain buried. The echoes grow louder. What if the voice you hear in the dark is the one calling you to your doom? The presence of echo became impossible to ignore. A cryptic message arrived at the police station. "I've been waiting for you to understand. You're not just investigating a disappearance. You're investigating the past, and the past is never truly gone." The voice of echo had been woven into every piece of the investigation. The strange phone calls, the mysterious letters, the cryptic warnings, it was all connected. But who was Echo? And why were they tore the final puzzle piece? What if everything you knew was just a game, and the pieces were being moved without your knowledge? After months of searching, Detective Hayes received a break. The missing piece to the puzzle was finally in his hands. A journal belonging to a former resident who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. In the journal, there were notes that mentioned a secret group within Cedarwood that controlled the town's fate. The group had been responsible for the disappearances, manipulating events, and erasing memories. It was clear now. This group had been the true orchestrators of the strange occurrences in Cedarwood, and they were still active today. But this journal revealed something far more disturbing. Lily had somehow become involved with this group, perhaps without even realizing it. She had uncovered their secrets, and someone had decided it was time to silence her. Was Lily part of the town's dark history, or had she been the target of a long-running conspiracy? The confrontation. In the final moments, the truth will come, crashing down. Will anyone survive the fallout? The investigation reached its boiling point. Hayes had finally tracked down the members of the secret group who had been manipulating events in Cedarwood. Confronting them meant risking everything. Their wealth, their power, and their dark secrets were too much for anyone to challenge. But Hayes was determined to see the truth come out. As the group confronted him in the shadows of an old mansion on the outskirts of town, the truth about Lily's disappearance began to unravel. The mastermind behind the entire conspiracy had been someone close to him, someone Hayes had never suspected. His old partner, Detective Marshall. Marshall had been pulling the strings from behind the scenes, orchestrating the disappearances, and using the town's power for his own dark purposes. The final confrontation was set to be a battle of wits as Hayes fought to expose the truth and save Lily, or what was left of her. The truth unveiled. The final truth is the hardest to accept. When everything you believed is shattered, how do you move forward? The final chapter revealed the chilling truth behind Lily's disappearance. She hadn't just been a victim of the town's conspiracy, she had been a key player in it. As the secret group began to unravel, it became clear that Lily had uncovered something too dangerous for the town to allow to survive. The real question remained. Was Lily still alive? Or had she become part of the town's dark legacy, forever lost to the shadows? This is the culmination of the mystery, where the investigation comes to a head, secrets are revealed, and the true nature of the conspiracy behind the disappearances is exposed. With the tension reaching its peak, the audience is left wondering what will happen to the remaining characters and whether the town of Cedarwood will ever be the same. Then came another twist. Hayes received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was distorted, but the message was clear. You're closer than you think, but if you keep digging, you'll never make it out alive. Was Echo trying to protect something or someone? Or was Echo the key to unlocking everything? The vanishing point. When the truth is finally exposed, does the past ever really let you go? The final pieces of the puzzle fell into place as Detective Hayes confronted his former partner, Detective Marshall. The mansion where they had met, long abandoned, now served as the final battleground. Marshall had been the architect of the town's greatest secret, a secret so twisted that even Hayes couldn't fully comprehend it until now. Marshall had orchestrated the disappearances to cover up a dark truth. The town's founding families were involved in a secret ritual, one passed down through generations. Each disappearance was not random, but part of an ancient pact. The ritual needed a sacrifice to ensure the prosperity of the town. The pattern was clear. The people who vanished were chosen to keep the town's dark history alive. The ritual's curse ensuring that the town continued to thrive. As Hayes pieced together the final connections, he realized with horror that Lily had been intended to be the next sacrifice. But something had changed. She had uncovered the truth, and instead of being the victim, she had become a threat to their power. That's why she was taken, but not in the way everyone had believed. Lily hadn't disappeared completely. She had gone into hiding, and now she was in control, the face of the future. Sometimes the hero you've been looking for was in the shadows all along. Lily's return to the investigation wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to send a chill through everyone involved. She emerged from the shadows of the mansion, stepping into the moonlight, revealing a woman who was no longer the frightened victim, but someone with a fire burning deep within her. Hayes had assumed Lily was gone for good, a casualty of the town's conspiracy. But she was alive, and she had been gathering allies, people who had once been close to the town's dark history, but who had turned against it. Together, they had spent months dismantling the group from the inside, weakening their hold on Cedarwood, without anyone realizing. As Lily took control of the situation, she made it clear to Marshall that the ritual would end tonight. She had come to reclaim her freedom, and the people who had allowed her to be part of their dark game were about to pay the price. The final stand-hook. When power is ripped from the hands of the corrupt, will there be any survivors left standing? The confrontations escalated quickly. Marshall, realizing he was losing control, called upon the last remaining members of the secret group. They gathered in the mansion's dark hallways, ready to fight for the town's prosperity, even if it meant bloodshed. But they had underestimated Lily. She wasn't the same girl they had manipulated years ago. She was more determined than ever to expose everything. In a tense standoff, Lily used the evidence she had gathered, recordings, old letters, and the town's forgotten history, to dismantle the group piece by piece. Hayes, now fully aware of his own entanglement in the conspiracy, finally stood beside her. Together, they turned the tables on Marshall and his followers, forcing them to face the consequences of their actions. As the sun began to rise over Cedarwood, the final showdown was over. The mansion that had once held the town's darkest secrets was now a symbol of its redemption. The rituals, the sacrifices, and the conspiracies were all exposed, leaving the town to face the truth it had long tried to bury. The quiet aftermath. After the storm, when the dust settles, can you ever truly go back to what you once knew? The town of Cedarwood was forever changed. The town's elite families were arrested, their decades-old grip on power shattered. Detective Hayes was promoted, but he felt a deep, unshakable emptiness. No matter how many criminals he put away, he knew he could never undo the choices he had made in the past. Lily, too, would never return to the life she had known. The town would remember what had happened, but the scars would linger. The secrets that had been exposed couldn't be erased, and Cedarwood would forever be known as a place where darkness had thrived for too long. But in the end, it was the people who fought to bring the truth to light who would rebuild it. Lily stood at the edge of the town, looking out over the now quiet streets. She was free, but Cedarwood would never be the same. She had taken control of her own fate, but the price had been high. The echo fades. Even when the last echo of a secret fades away, what's left in its wake as life in Cedarwood slowly returned? To normal, there was one last mystery to unravel. The town's history had been torn apart, but there were whispers that not everyone involved had been brought to justice. Some said Echo, the mysterious figure who had guided the investigation, was still watching, waiting for the perfect moment to step back into the shadows. But Lily knew better. She had been part of the shadows, and now she was the one who controlled the narrative. Cedarwood's fate was no longer in the hands of the past. It was in the hands of those who had fought to end it. In a quiet moment, Lily walked through the town one last time, past the old mansion where it all began. As she paused to look at the now abandoned structure, she felt the weight of everything that had happened. The story of Cedarwood was far from over, but for the first time, the town had a future built on the truth. The final touch. Some mysteries aren't solved. They simply fade away, only to resurface when you least expect them. Years later, a new investigator came to Cedarwood. The story of Lily and the dark history of the town had faded from memory, but some things never truly go away. The investigator found an old file in the archives, Lily's case. The final page was missing. As the new investigator reviewed the case, they couldn't help but wonder, was there more to the story? Had the truth really been uncovered? Or had the echoes of the past simply been buried, waiting for the right moment to resurface? The town of Cedarwood might have thought it was free, but the past was never truly gone. It was only waiting for someone to ask the right questions. A new dawn. After all the darkness, is there finally a light at the end of the tunnel? Months passed after the town of Cedarwood was freed from the grip of its dark past. The mansion that had once been the center of its darkest secrets was now a museum, a reminder of the town's struggle and the strength it took to uncover the truth. The town itself, though scarred, was slowly healing. Detective Hayes, though forever changed by the ordeal, found peace in the work he had done. He became a local hero, but he never sought the spotlight. Instead, he focused on helping Cedarwood rebuild, using his experience to lead efforts for town-wide rehabilitation. The people who had been affected by the disappearances began to return to their lives, no longer haunted by the shadows of the past. But the greatest change came in the form of Lily, reclaiming the future. When you've survived the darkest storm, can you finally embrace the sunshine? Lily, once a terrified victim of Cedarwood's hidden secrets, was now a symbol of strength. She chose to stay in Cedarwood, not out of obligation, but because it had become her home. The life she had once known felt like a distant memory, replaced by something new. A community built on honesty, resilience, and the shared understanding that the past, though painful, no longer had control. Lily went on to help other survivors of the town's past, offering support to those who were still processing the trauma. She opened a foundation to help families affected by similar experiences and worked to bring about awareness on how small towns often hide big secrets. Her voice became an inspiring force for positive change, and she found a new purpose in helping others heal. With each passing day, Lily grew more confident in her role, not just as a survivor, but as a leader, a beacon of hope for Cedarwood's future. The town reborn. After the storm, there's always a rainbow, and Cedarwood was finally seeing its colors. Will it thrive again? Cedarwood began to thrive again, though it was different now. No longer shrouded in mystery and fear, the town began to prosper in new ways. Local businesses flourished as tourists came to learn about the town's fascinating and unsettling history, which was now being shared openly with respect for the victims and their stories. The people of Cedarwood no longer lived in fear, and the town's secrets were no longer hidden away in the shadows. The town's leaders worked together to create a safer, more transparent community. New laws were put into place to ensure that no one would ever manipulate Cedarwood again. The mayor, a young, idealistic woman who had been one of the first to stand up against the corruption, worked alongside Hayes and Lily to ensure that the future was built on truth, justice, and unity. A personal victory. When the world is dark, sometimes a single light can lead you home. In the final scene, we see Lily standing on the edge of the hill that overlooks the town. The sun is setting, casting a warm glow over Cedarwood. She smiles, her face finally at peace, free from the chains of the past. Beside her stands Hayes, who, after months of tension and turmoil, has found his own peace. They share a quiet moment, appreciating how far they've come. Lily has found happiness, not just because she uncovered the truth, but because she rebuilt herself from the inside out. She found the strength to face her fears and rebuild her future, proving that even the darkest secrets can't erase the light of hope. The final moments show the town coming alive again. Children play in the streets. People greet each other with smiles. Cedarwood, now a place of healing, has a second chance. Hope in the shadows. No matter how dark the night, the stars always shine. And Cedarwood's stars were finally out in full force. Lily and Hayes, once bonded by their shared pursuit of truth, now share a quiet friendship that embodies the spirit of Cedarwood's new beginning. They've moved past the shadows of the town's secrets and are finally able to look toward the future with hope. As the camera pans over Cedarwood, we see a banner hung across the main street that reads, Cedarwood, a town reborn. The residents are gathered for a town festival, celebrating their newfound freedom, the truth that was uncovered, and the strength of their community. Lily, standing on the stage as a speaker at the town event, looks out at the crowd with pride. Her voice, calm and steady, carries through the air. We've all faced our darkness, but we've come out stronger. Cedarwood is no longer a place of fear, but a place of hope. We are a town that has seen the worst, but we will always rise. As the crowd erupts in applause, Lily looks over to Hayes. He gives her a small, approving nod. And in that moment, both of them know they've done something that will last. They've changed the town's destiny forever. The camera pans up to the sky where the sun has finally set, and the stars shine brightly in the night sky. The echoes of the past have faded, but the future is wide open.
Imagine spending 18 years in prison for a crime you didn't commit. Imagine the despair, the frustration, the crushing weight of injustice. This was the reality for Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly Jr., the West Memphis Three. Wrongfully convicted in 1994 for the murders of 3 8-year-old boys, they became victims of a flawed justice system and a community gripped by fear and suspicion. Their youth vanished behind bars, their futures stolen. The crime that led to their imprisonment shook the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas, and ignited a firestorm of speculation and fear that would forever alter their lives. On May 5, 1993, the unthinkable happened. 3 young boys, Stevie Branch, Michael Byers, and Christopher Byers, vanished from their neighborhood. Their bodies were later found in a muddy creek in the Robin Hood Hills area. They had been brutally murdered. Panic gripped West Memphis. The crime scene was horrific, the details too gruesome to comprehend. Rumors spread like wildfire. The brutality of the murders pointed towards something dark, something ritualistic. The term satanic panic began to circulate, fueled by fear and a lack of answers. The community craved answers, a target for their grief and rage. Police quickly focused their attention on Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly Jr., 3 teenagers known for their love of heavy metal music and outsider status. They were different, misunderstood, easy scapegoats in a town desperate for someone to blame. Damian, with his interest in Wicca and the occult, became the prime suspect. Jason, quiet and withdrawn, was painted as his accomplice. And Jesse, with his learning disability and naivety, became the prosecution's star witness, his coerced confession a pivotal moment in the case. The investigation was marred by tunnel vision and a rush to judgment. Evidence was mishandled, witnesses coerced, and alternative suspects ignored. The prosecution relied heavily on Jesse Miskelly's confession, a rambling, inconsistent account extracted after hours of interrogation without a lawyer present. Jesse, with an IQ of 72, was easily manipulated by the police. His confession was riddled with inaccuracies and contradicted the physical evidence. Yet it became a cornerstone of the prosecution's case, swaying a jury hungry for a conviction. The trials of the West Memphis Three were, well, a media circus. The prosecution presented a narrative of satanic ritual and teenage rebellion, playing on the fears and prejudices of the community. The defense fought valiantly, but the weight of public opinion, fueled by sensationalized reporting, proved too heavy to overcome. Despite a lack of physical evidence linking them to the crime, Damian Eccles was sentenced to death, Jason Baldwin to life in prison, and Jesse Miskelly Jr. to life plus 40 years. They were branded as monsters, their names forever linked to a horrific crime they did not commit. The fight for justice was long and arduous. Years passed, marked by appeals and legal battles. But a glimmer of hope emerged with the advent of new DNA testing technology. The evidence, previously unavailable, pointed away from the West Memphis Three and towards an unknown assailant. Their case gained national attention, attracting the support of celebrities like Eddie Vedder, Johnny Depp, and Peter Jackson. These high-profile advocates used their platforms to raise awareness, fundraise for legal defense, and demand a retrial. The world began to listen. After 18 years of wrongful imprisonment, a glimmer of hope emerged. The state of Arkansas offered the West Memphis Three a deal, an offered plea. This meant they could maintain their innocence while pleading guilty to the crimes. It was a Faustian bargain, a way to secure their freedom while acknowledging the possibility of a wrongful conviction. On August 19, 2011, Damian, Jason, and Jesse accepted the offered plea. They walked free, but their fight for complete exoneration continued. The release of the West Memphis Three was a victory for justice, but it was a bittersweet one. While they were finally free, the real perpetrator of the crime remains unknown. The original investigation was compromised, and crucial evidence was lost or mishandled, leaving many unanswered questions. Who killed Stevie, Michael, and Christopher? The mystery continues to haunt the families of the victims and the community of West Memphis. For Damian, Jason, and Jesse, the fight for complete exoneration and the pursuit of the truth goes on. Despite their release, the scars of wrongful conviction run deep. Damian, Jason, and Jesse lost their youth to a flawed justice system. They emerged from prison forever changed, their lives irrevocably altered by the experience. The fight for justice doesn't end with their release. They deserve to have their names cleared and the real perpetrator brought to justice. The West Memphis Three case stands as a stark reminder of the fallibility of the justice system and the devastating impact of wrongful conviction. The air crackled with anticipation. The city seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing the impending doom that would soon unfold. The streets were unusually quiet, a stark contrast to the usual Sunday hustle and bustle. It was as if the entire city was on edge, waiting for something to happen. It was Sunday, February 11th, 2024, a day etched in infamy. The date would forever be remembered, not for the usual Sunday gatherings or family outings, but for the horror that would soon grip the hearts of many. Lakewood Church, a beacon of faith in the heart of Houston, Texas, teemed with life. Thousands had gathered, the faithful seeking solace, families seeking hope. The church was a sanctuary, a place where people came to find peace and comfort. But on this day, peace was shattered. Then, the unthinkable. A deafening roar shattered the serenity. Gunfire. The sound echoed through the halls, a violent intrusion into a place of worship. It was a sound that would haunt the memories of those present for years to come. Screams pierced the air, replacing hymns and prayers. The congregation, moments ago united in faith, was now united in fear. Faces contorted in terror, voices raised in panic. The sacred space had become a scene of chaos. Chaos ensued as congregants scrambled for cover. People ducked under pews, clung to each other, and searched for any means of escape. The sense of safety they had felt just moments before was replaced by sheer terror. It was a scene of utter pandemonium. Chairs were overturned, belongings scattered, and the once orderly congregation was now a frantic, disordered mass. The church, a place of order and reverence, had descended into chaos. A nightmare unfolding in broad daylight. The bright sun outside stood in stark contrast to the darkness that had enveloped the hearts of those inside. It was a cruel reminder that terror can strike at any time, even in the light of day. Janessa Yvonne Moreno, a 36-year-old woman, had unleashed terror within the sacred halls. Her face was a mask of determination and despair, a tragic figure driven to a horrific act. Clutching an AR-15-style rifle, she transformed a sanctuary into a battleground. The weapon, a symbol of violence, was a stark contrast to the peaceful surroundings of the church. The sanctuary, meant to be a place of refuge, had become a place of fear. By her side stood her 7-year-old son Samuel, an unwitting witness to the horrors about to unfold. His innocent eyes took in the chaos, a child caught in a nightmare he could not understand. Lives hung precariously in the balance. Faith was tested. The congregation, once united in worship, now found themselves united in a desperate struggle for survival. The bonds of community were strained, but not broken. And in the aftermath, a community grappled with the haunting question, how could this happen here? The sense of shock and disbelief was palpable. As they gathered to mourn and seek answers, the community was left to pick up the pieces and find a way to heal. Lakewood Church, a sprawling edifice of glass and steel, stood as a testament to the power of faith. Founded in 1959, it had become synonymous with the ministry of Pastor Joel Osteen, a charismatic figure known for his message of hope and prosperity. Osteen, with his infectious smile and unwavering optimism, had built a global following. Millions tuned into his televised sermons. His books topped bestseller lists. Lakewood, under his leadership, became a beacon, drawing over 45,000 worshipers each week. It was a place where the downtrodden sought solace, where the faithful found fellowship. A fortress of positivity, seemingly impervious to the darkness that plagued the world outside. Yet, on that fateful Sunday, evil pierced its walls, exposing the fragility of peace even in the most sacred of spaces. Janessa Yvonne Moreno was no stranger to darkness. Her life was a constant battle against the shadows that seemed to follow her every step. From a young age, she was haunted by an overwhelming sense of despair and confusion, feelings that only intensified as she grew older. Her life, marred by mental illness, was a tapestry of shattered dreams and unfulfilled promises. The broken mirror of her existence reflected a face that had seen too much pain, too many disappointments. The abandoned playgrounds and rundown houses of her past were silent witnesses to her struggles. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, she grappled with a reality that often blurred with delusion. The crowded streets felt like a maze, each face a potential threat, each sound a possible trigger. Her mind was a battlefield where the lines between reality and hallucination were constantly shifting. Her descent was a slow burn, marked by erratic behavior and increasingly desperate cries for help. Public outbursts and private breakdowns became more frequent, each episode a cry for understanding that went unheard. She wandered aimlessly, a disheveled figure lost in her own torment. A custody battle over her son Samuel further fueled her instability. The courtroom became a battleground where her pleas for custody were met with skepticism and cold legal jargon. The separation from her son was a wound that never healed, a source of constant anguish. The courts, cold and unforgiving, offered little solace. The imposing buildings and the echo of the judge's gavel were reminders of a system that seemed indifferent to her suffering. The empty courtroom, once filled with her desperate pleas, now stood as a monument to her defeat. In the months leading up to the shooting, her grip on reality seemed to falter. She spent hours staring blankly at the walls, her mind a whirlpool of dark thoughts. Her apartment, once a place of refuge, became a prison filled with disturbing drawings and symbols that mirrored her inner chaos. Anti-Semitic writings and disturbing symbols adorned her apartment. The walls, covered in graffiti and hateful messages, were a testament to her growing paranoia and anger. Each symbol, each word, was a reflection of the darkness that had taken hold of her mind. Her online presence, once a window into a troubled but hopeful soul, grew dark, laced with paranoia and anger. Her social media posts, once filled with pleas for understanding, became rants against imagined enemies. The screen, once a connection to the world, now only amplified her isolation. The purchase of an AR-15-style rifle in December 2023, legal yet chilling in hindsight, hinted at a growing potential for violence. The transaction, a simple exchange of money for a weapon, was a turning point. The rifle, cold and mechanical, became a symbol of her final descent. Yet, the warning signs went unheeded. The people around her, oblivious to her growing distress, continued with their lives. Each ignored sign, each missed opportunity for intervention, was a step closer to the inevitable tragedy. Janessa, lost in the labyrinth of her own mind, slipped further into the abyss, dragging her young son with her. The darkness that had always been a part of her life finally consumed her, leaving a trail of pain and sorrow in its wake. The first shot ripped through the air, a deafening blast that sent shockwaves through the sanctuary. Panic seized the congregation. The serene atmosphere of the church was shattered in an instant, replaced by a cacophony of screams and the sound of feet scrambling for safety. The once peaceful sanctuary, a place of solace and reflection, was now a scene of utter chaos and terror. What began as a day of prayer and reflection descended into chaos. The congregation who had gathered to find peace and solace were now thrust into a nightmare. The echoes of hymns were replaced by cries for help, and the sacred space became a battleground of survival. It was like a bomb went off, recalled Sarah Jenkins, a parishioner for over a decade. Her voice trembled as she recounted the horror, her eyes reflecting the trauma of that fateful day. The memories of the explosion, the screams, and the chaos were etched into her mind, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life. People were screaming, running, diving under pews. It was pure terror. The instinct to survive took over, and the congregation scattered in every direction, seeking any form of cover they could find. The pews, once seats of worship, became shields against the onslaught of violence. John Miller, attending the service with his wife and 2 young children, described the scene as surreal. He had never imagined that a place of worship could become a scene of such horror. The disbelief in his voice was palpable as he recounted the events, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and sorrow. One minute we were singing hymns, the next we were dodging bullets. The transition from peace to pandemonium was instantaneous, leaving no time to comprehend the reality of the situation. The hymns, once a source of comfort, were now a distant memory as survival instincts kicked in. My wife shielded our children with her body. Her maternal instincts took over, and she became a human shield, protecting our children from the chaos that surrounded us. The fear in her eyes was matched only by her determination to keep our family safe. We thought we were going to die. The sense of impending doom was overwhelming and the fear was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity as we waited for the nightmare to end. As Moreno stalked the aisles, her guns spitting fire, the air grew thick with the stench of gunpowder and fear. The sight of her, a figure of terror, moving through the sanctuary, was a vision of pure horror. The once sacred space was now a battlefield, and the congregation were its unwilling participants. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as a man crumpled to the floor, blood blooming from a gunshot wound to his leg. The sight of blood on the sacred ground was a stark reminder of the violence that had invaded their sanctuary. The man's cries of pain echoed through the church, a chilling soundtrack to the chaos. But the most heart-wrenching cries came from a child caught in the crossfire. The innocence of youth was shattered in an instant, replaced by a fear that no child should ever have to experience. The child's cries were a haunting reminder of the true cost of violence. Samuel, his small frame trembling, witnessed the unthinkable. His mother, consumed by madness, transforming into an agent of destruction. The sight of his mother, once a figure of love and protection, now a source of terror, was a trauma that would stay with him forever. The day of terror had left an indelible mark on all who witnessed it, but none more so than the innocent eyes of a child. The officers, alerted by the sudden commotion, quickly sprang into action. They knew time was of the essence. With a swift and coordinated effort, they began to secure the area and assess the situation. Each officer moved with purpose, their training evident in every step. They communicated efficiently, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. The scene was tense, but their resolve was unshaken. As the dust began to settle, they knew their response had been crucial in maintaining order. As we delve deeper into the mind of Moreno, we begin to uncover layers of complexity that defy simple explanation. What drove him to such lengths? Was it a desperate cry for help, or something more sinister? These questions linger, prompting us to look beyond the surface and explore the intricate web of his motivations. Navigating the legal labyrinth surrounding this case is no small feat. The legal system, with its many twists and turns, can be daunting. Each step, each decision, carries immense weight and consequences. Understanding the legal intricacies helps us grasp the full scope of the challenges faced by all involved. The aftermath of the incident continues to unfold, affecting countless lives. Families, communities, and institutions are all grappling with the repercussions. The ripple effects are far-reaching, reminding us that the impact of such events extends well beyond the immediate moment. Reflecting on this incident brings to light important discussions about faith, safety, and mental health. How do we balance our beliefs with the need for security? What measures can we take to ensure mental well-being in our communities? These reflections challenge us to think deeply and consider the steps we can take to create a safer, more supportive world for everyone.